What's up, everybody? Welcome to the stream. We're back. We're back, baby. We're back. We're gonna do. We're gonna answer questions about FPV stuff from you guys, and you know, as we do. Adam McDevitt. If you know, you know. I don't know what you know, but if you know, then you know it. This is a beautiful thing about saying if you know, you know. No one has any idea what you're referring to, except those who know. Diesel Reaper FPV, welcome to the chat, Diesel Reaper. I would feel like I would remember your username if I'd seen it before, and you're like here and you're chatting it up. Welcome to the stream. It's good to have you, keeping things lively. Here we go. We ready? We're just gonna start taking questions, right? That's what we do. And Blunty's queuing the questions up. You guys are gonna ask the questions. If you want to leave a super chat, hit the $ down in the bottom, and I'll read your chats in just a little bit. Bardwell's the Vin Diesel of FPV. I don't know. I would take it. Vin Diesel is an attractive man. He has been an attractive man. He was an attractive man. He probably still is. Although, you know, everybody gets older. Family. I'm just trying to look at how my beard grooming's doing today. How am I shaping? I feel like, I can't see it from this side. Except I should, when I'm actually, you know, because I'm looking in the mirror. I need like a sideways camera that I could use to shape my profile. It's pretty good. I feel pretty good about it. Welcome to the stream, everybody. Let's do this question. Come on, Blunty. Get it. There it is. This is the one I want. A Wisconsin man's house burned down recently due to drone battery charging. Do you see FPV batteries getting protection devices mandated? That wasn't the question I thought you were going to ask. But it's a good question. I do not see FPV batteries getting protection devices in the future. And the thing is, I'm not sure how much help like integrated charging would be. It would be some help. So like the question that I think we have to go to is what causes drone battery fires? Okay. And I think the number one thing that causes drone battery fires is incorrect charging, improper charging. I don't mean like you plugged in a 6S battery and charged it as an 8S. Like chargers have a lot of protections built in. If a battery is not the voltage that the charger thinks that it should be, if the voltage is too high or too low, it'll refuse to charge it. And generally that works pretty well. In fact, when I blow up a battery for science, I have to intentionally trick the charger into thinking that like a 6S battery is actually a 7S battery or an 8S battery so that it'll overcharge it because it'll just refuse to overcharge it. But when I say incorrect charging, what I mean is incorrect charging procedure. As in, you plug the battery in, you start charging, and then the number one mistake you make is you walk away. You leave the battery unattended. This is the number one mistake people make when charging. Usually, if a battery is going to light on fire, it will give some signs that it's unhappy. It will make some sounds. It might pop, or it might hiss, or it might get hot, or it might puff up real big. Usually, if you're paying attention, you will see a battery saying, hey, I'm about to betray you, and you'll have time to do something about it. But if you charge unattended, then the situation gets bad before you can do anything about it. It doesn't mean that batteries never just spontaneously go. It doesn't mean that batteries never just go when they're not being charged. Just out of the blue, they light on. I mean, these things do happen, but they're much more rare. So the thing I would say, though, is that, why don't we hear about DJI batteries doing this? Well, we don't. We commonly don't. I think the issue is not so much the charging. DJI batteries have built-in charging circuitry, and there's no room for user error. You just plug the battery in, and the charger does what it does. I think the issue is more that DJI batteries are not abused in the way that FPV batteries are abused. They are not over discharged, right? Over discharging and then recharged back to life, but now they've been damaged. And they are not crashed and physically abused in the way that FPV batteries are. The bottom line is this: FPV pilots don't want integrated battery management. If they wanted it, then somebody would be offering it and they would be buying it. That isn't happening. And it has never really happened over the course of the existence of FPV as a hobby. So as long as the customer doesn't want it, people aren't going to get it. And then the question is, will it be mandated by law? And I don't see that happening. I just don't see that happening. Of all the ways in which the government sees fit to make rules about our personal safety, I don't see batteries have to have protection circuits on them being anywhere in their purview. Especially because these days it seems like the government is moving further away from mandating things like I heard recently, the EPA's scientific wing. The people at the EPA who do scientific research, and the big chemical company says it's okay for this chemical to be in people's bloodstream, so we shouldn't have to worry about it. And then the EPA goes, well, I guess we're not going to just take your word for that. And the EPA has scientists who study the chemical and go, well, actually, this chemical is really bad for people and you shouldn't be allowed to do that. And then the EPA makes regulations. The government's kind of getting out of the keeping people from having deadly chemicals in their body business. And so we're just going to take companies' word for the fact that things are safe. And so that doesn't seem like the direction the government is moving, to say, hey, we're going to mandate that batteries have to have this expensive safety thing on them. We'll just let everybody defend for themselves. But even if they did, I don't think FPV pilots would want it. So there you go. There's our first question. Let's do the second question. Plenty, I don't even know if you've queued it yet. Have you queued the question that just came in about the Spill the Tea live stream? Let's see. I'm looking. I'm not seeing it. Here, he's going to queue. Here it is. Did you see the recent 3-hour live stream on Lamone's channel discussing the Tiny Whoop, Tiny Who controversy? Would love to hear your comment. I did see it. In fact, I watched almost all of it. It was extremely entertaining. I was disappointed that so little of it had to do with me. Apparently, the world doesn't revolve around me. Go figure. I did come up very, very briefly about an interaction Jesse and I had about his trademark, but there seems to be a much, much bigger story there. I won't make you watch the whole 3-hour live stream. I will just say, so you guys may or may not know who Jesse Perkins is. Jesse Perkins is the founder of Tiny Whoop, the company. He is also, if not like the inventor of the original Tiny Whoop drone, certainly one of the guys who popularized that the most, and maybe the inventor. It's always tough because if you go way, way back in time, a lot of times there's more than one person who was doing a thing like taking a little 65 millimeter brush drone and putting an FPV camera on it. And then they're like, there's one guy who kind of popularized it, and then everybody sort of misremembers that he was the inventor. I don't know if that's what's happening with Jesse Perkins and Tiny Whoop, but certainly he's one of the most influential people to bring the idea of a 65 millimeter brushed, originally they were brushed, now they're brushless, a 65 millimeter FPV drone to public attention. And he called that the Tiny Whoop. His company is named Tiny Whoop, and he actually trademarked the term Tiny Whoop, which then got to be an issue because Tiny Whoop became kind of generally used to refer to 65 millimeter drones of any kind, and he holds a trademark on it. And recently he started reaching out to people and saying, hey, that's my trademark term, please don't use it generically, which of course he has the legal right to do. And that created a little bit of a, well, it stirred up some feelings. It stirred feelings in me. He came to me and asked me to not misuse his trademark on my website. And I said, well, not to, I'm trying to decide how much I want to rehash the whole thing. And you guys need context, but also I don't want to rehash the whole thing. The short version is that I think that the term has essentially already been diluted, is the technical term. Everybody just refers to all 65 millimeter things as Tiny Whoops, right? A lot, and I'm not even sure that he sells them anymore. Like, his company is still in business. He sells batteries, he sells other things. I'm not even sure he still makes Tiny Whoop quadcopters, regardless. So I said, like, I think this is really silly. It's been diluted, and I don't think. And mostly, I had I don't dispute his ownership of the trademark, but I was like, dude, I really just think this is dumb that you're like going to go out and enforce this on stores and stuff. But you do what you got to do, was my take. I think it's dumb. You do what you got to do. It turned out the trademark had lapsed. He lost the trademark because he didn't file the paperwork. Although I've heard since then that if you're still in using the trademark in business, you don't immediately lose it just because you didn't file the paperwork. I don't know all the ins and outs of that. I just think it's dumb. If you made, I understand you need to make money for your company and your family, but if you've got this product that's so popular, like, great, just go with it. Other people use it generically. They're doing free marketing for you. I don't know. And if your products, if people, they're not buying people are not buying a Happy model or a Beta FPV 65 millimeter drone because it's called a Tiny Whoop. They're buying it because it's a good product. And the fact that you are the actual official owner of Tiny Whoop isn't going to make your products like somehow better. Like, the fact that everybody says Tiny Whoop and people type Tiny Whoop, you come up first because you own the domain, that's valuable. So anyway, but that's his business decision to make, not mine. But we had a little bit of a scuffle about that, which then eventually came to public awareness. And I said, well, Jesse, can we just release the receipts? Can we just release the chat transcript? And we'll let everybody decide what they think. If I'm reasonable or if I'm unreasonable. I was like, I'm not interested in arguing about it. And I'm still not, although I'm recapping it for you. Because then a whole bunch of people seem to have come out of the woodwork. And maybe a whole bunch is overstating it. But then there's now this movement, the Tiny Who movement. The Tiny Who movement is people who feel wronged by Jesse. Some of his past business associates, some of his, I don't know, people who've done business with him, other people who've worked with him, or I don't know. And they're all like, there's this we hate Jesse Perkins Facebook group called Tiny Who, like Tiny Whoop, but Tiny Who. And then it turned into an internet drama. And I've never had a bad experience with Jesse, except for the time when he tried to enforce his trademark on me, and we had a little bit of a dispute over whether that was just a polite request or a threat to sue. I feel like if you come to me and you say, I own a trademark, and I'm asking you not to use my trademark, that implies a threat to sue. If you don't intend, you can make a polite request, and I said to him, I said, Jesse, is this a polite request? And then I'll say, no, thank you. I think this is dumb. And then we move on. And he was like, nope, I have to ask you. My lawyer said, by the time you invoke lawyers and you say this is not just a polite request, well, then you're threatening to sue. Ultimately, you're threatening to sue me. The analogy I made is if you got a gun in your holster and you say, put your hands up, the implication is that the gun will come out of the holster if I don't do what you say. You've got a gun in a holster. It's the trademark and the threat to sue. So, like, we're not having a polite, friendly conversation as long as that threat is on the table. That's how I saw it. So, there was this 3-hour live stream where Jesse went back and forth. You can watch the live stream. And one thing I took from that live stream is that these sort of complaints against him are all very vague. Very vague. Like, I don't know if you guys remember the Lunchbox FPV controversy from a few years ago, where there was this product called the FPV Lunchbox, and this dude who was behind it, I don't even remember his name, and he was supposed to, he took a bunch of money, he took orders for this product, and then didn't deliver the product, and basically ran off with everybody's money, is like the very, very abridged version. I'm sure there's more details that people might dispute, but that's the short version. And I personally know that Rotor Riot put money into that product, and then like just the money, they never got product, the money disappeared, and I'm sure they're not the only one. And so like here's a case where there's a concrete like wrong, like this guy took money, didn't deliver product, bad, and all the complaints against Jesse seem to be very sort of like he's manipulative. I didn't like how he talked to me, and I just feel like I don't want to. And it's like, okay. Sure. If we start a I Hate Bardwell group, and then a whole bunch of people join the group, like, does that mean that like I'm a bad guy? I don't know. Like everybody has enemies, and on a large enough scale, there's going to be people who you leave a bad taste in their mouth. Although I will say the people I've done business with, I think the only complaint they would have would be that sometimes I don't promote their products aggressively enough. But ultimately, I usually I feel like people who do business with me want to keep doing business with me, and there's not like a bunch of, so the fact that there's a bunch of people who like worked with him and then suddenly feel like he effed them over, I don't know, maybe it means something, maybe it doesn't. I didn't think there was any real concrete, like Jesse did. There's his old business partner, from way back in the day, said that he like promised him a 70-30 split and then like stole the whole company out from under him. But you see what, the receipts on that, if they're there, I don't know. That was the only sort of like concrete wrong that I saw. I will say one other thing though, and that is that I feel like as I watched that interview, I feel like it was very, very clear to me that Jesse is a certain kind of person who argues, shall we say, in a certain kind of way that I was immediately familiar with when I saw how he was engaging with the conversation. And I think if you've ever dealt with a person like that, you immediately saw it too. And I think it wasn't clear to me that Jesse was that kind of person before. I saw a very... Is it raining? It's raining outside. Sorry, I'm hearing rain against my window. I got confused. I saw a very conscious desire to shape the conversation. Some would say manipulate. And a very sort of cagey person who was trying to appear casual and not cagey or manipulative. Maybe manipulative is too strong a word. There was one time that stood out to me where someone said, "Oh, so-and-so doesn't want to work with you anymore." And Jesse said, I don't know what incident could possibly have caused that. And there's this sort of back and forth where he's like, "Oh, I don't know what could have caused that. Yeah, hey, if you're out there, tell me what caused that. Like, I'm so willing to engage. I don't know. I'm so open. No, I apologize for the wrongs." This very sort of careful dance of pushing back when he felt like he could, and "Oh, I don't know. Yeah, I just want to be friends with everybody." And then like the dude emailed Yvonne, and Yvonne was like, "Well, he's got the receipts right here telling me." And then suddenly Jesse remembered what happened and started arguing against it before it could. I was like, "Oh, interesting. I thought you didn't know what happened, but suddenly you figured it out, didn't you?" I was like, that was interesting to me. The other thing that stood out to me was this old business partner of Jesse said, we had a 50-50 split, and then I put in 5 figures of cash to keep the company going, and then we agreed that in exchange for that there would be a 70-30 split. But when it turns out when the paperwork got filed with the state, it was 100% Jesse, and I had no ownership stake. And you ripped me off is essentially what the guy was saying. And Jesse kept saying, that 70-30 paperwork never got filed. And I was like, well, yeah, no, that's the accusation, is that it didn't get filed. And it kind of felt like he was hoping everybody would hear the 70-30 agreement didn't exist, when what he was actually saying was the paperwork didn't get filed, which was the exact accusation against. So I don't know. I didn't think Jesse came off very well. Other people did. And if you ask me, it's because they were successfully sort of snowed by his attempt to seem like a nice guy. The other thing was whenever he would hear that somebody had blocked off contact and didn't want to talk to him anymore. And he'd be like, I just want to be friends. Reach out to me. I want to be friends, which is like a tactic that I've seen people who are abusers. I'm not saying Jesse's an abuser, but I have seen abusers who want to seem like the good guy when they drive away their victim to the point where the victim breaks contact with them so they can because they cannot interact with this person because it's so toxic to them. And then they're like, I don't know why we don't talk anymore. Reach out to me. I just want to be friends. And what they're really asking for is another opportunity to continue to abuse you. And then you look like the bad guy when you don't want to talk to them, but you can't explain that to anybody. I don't know. Maybe it's just my bias from situations I've been in the past. I found the accusation that he is a toxic, narcissist, manipulative person. If I had to ask or that all these accusations are false and he's just a nice, misunderstood guy, to me, the gut check that I got while watching how he acted in that interview was it's more likely that he's the toxic, narcissist, manipulative person than that he's just a nice, misunderstood guy. And I have a feeling that people who have interacted with toxic narcissist manipulators would agree with me, and people who either have not interacted with that or who are toxic narcissist manipulators would see it the other way. That's my read. There you go. Okay, how's the chat doing, Blunty?
As good as it can be right now, to be honest with you.
Okay. And I don't know. Oh, good. Thank you. The chat's not going crazy. I hesitate because I'm not interested in like just stirring the pot. Jesse reached out to me and was like, let's do a live stream where you and me and Jeff Grabowski go toe to toe. It'll get so many videos. And I was like, no fucking thank you. Not interested. Not interested. Oh, yeah, let me just spew some toxic bullshit into the ether and I can get some views. Look, it's like bum fights, but for FPV. No, thank you. I'm going to just make content about FPV. And I think FPV Spill the Tea was the perfect place to have that particular bum fight, if you will. Yvonne did an amazing job moderating. I really think that they did so much a better job with that interview than I even would have. But I was just like, no, thank you. And I still feel that way. But at the same time, I did have like a reaction to watching it, and I felt like maybe it's appropriate for me to like make my opinion known about that. So, sorry, Jesse. I know that you want to come off as like a nice, friendly guy. I think that that's an act. I think that maybe not an act exactly. I think you think you're a nice, friendly guy and don't understand why people call you a manipulative con man. Maybe it's not confusing to you deep, deep, deep down. I think when you say you just want everybody to get along and you want to squash the beef, I think you mean that, but you don't mean that you... okay. I don't know. I can't really make that come out the way that it really needs to, so I'm going to stop. Anyway.
I can't comment on this situation, but I can comment on a situation I've been a part of, and I think it's just a story that fits the situation.
Absolutely.
Is we have 3 owners in the grow that I worked at, and 2 owners were
cannabis grow.
In the cannabis grow. 2 owners were friendly and had good demeanors, and one of them was like a narcissistic asshole. Mm-hmm. And the problem is that And he never knew it. For years, he could not figure out why people didn't like him. He had
Yeah.
no understanding that people in the building weren't a fan of him. He had no understanding of why the things he told them came off wrong. He had no grasp that people wouldn't stand behind him if something came up between him and the other owners. It was just this total disconnect. And and one day, the other owners were being bitches about it too, to be honest. And they sent me up there to watch him because they were worried he was going to do something to the building because they had like such a twisted version of what he was, and like it was just such a mess. And so I told him while I was there, I'm like, look, they sent me up here because they don't trust you.
They think you're going to light the building on fire or something.
You could see on his face, it was like I had punched him in the gut, and he was devastated.
Yeah.
And he just, I could tell with every fiber of his being, he believed that everyone liked him and there was nothing wrong. I could see it in his face. Like he wasn't lying to me, you know? It was just like in his world, it was real. Yeah. And so I just, it's important to remember that people in these situations, I think for them, it's very real. They absolutely think they're doing the best they can, and they absolutely think they're trying to reach out to people, and they absolutely think they're reacting emotionally correctly. And they just have this disconnect between that and the actions and the way those actions affect people. That's what I would say.
Yep. Absolutely. Yeah. Like it's legitimately confusing why someone he one of the things he said was, I'll have this debate with so-and-so on public and people can decide whether I am, as accused, like manipulative con man or just using reason to try to make my point. And I'm like, I cannot explain to you the difference between I am respecting you as a person and your position while still trying to argue my position, and I am being a manipulative con man who people have to break contact with because they cannot deal with me. I can't explain to you if you don't just understand the difference. But then if like there's a list of 7 people who've broken contact with you because they say you're a manipulative con man, I feel like that deserves a lot of introspection. And then if your reaction to someone who has broken contact with you and repeatedly indicated they don't ever want to talk to you again is to say, bro, why can't we be friends? Come on, reach out to me. Let's make this right. Like, that means you don't actually believe that they've been victimized. You don't believe them when they tell you they've been victimized by you. You don't respect them enough to say, okay, I will not talk to you. And that suggests to me that they might be right. You see? If there was someone who said to me, listen, Bardwell, you have mistreated me our whole relationship. I know you don't get it, but I can never talk to you again. Do not lose my number. Take my name out of your mouth. And I went on an interview and somebody said, hey, Bardwell, Blunty doesn't ever want to talk to you again. What's up with that? I would just be like, I don't know. I don't get it. And I don't think it's appropriate to talk about it now. But I would not use a public platform to publicly call you out and say, let's be friends, because what I'm doing there is inviting the public to blame you for being an asshole and not accepting my good faith offer. I'm trying to win the court of public opinion. And that's like after I've already abused you to the point where you can't talk to me ever again, I'm continuing to abuse you by saying that.
Yeah, and to be clear, it's because nobody else has the context we have. Right. That's the most important thing to understand about this is like, yeah, the reason that's a problem is because you think you have all the context as the person, sitting there saying, like if you had said like, oh, well, all this stuff happened and I talked to Blunty about it and I thought everything was great. You know?
Yeah.
But that's one side of it. You have one piece, one side of the context, and you're providing just one side of the context, a tailored version of the context to everyone in the entire audience. Yeah. And that's the problem. 100%. That's the problem. I agree with you in that, that stuff needs to be handled offline. It's very simple to say, I apologize if there's any issues. I'm sorry that happened. I will do my best to discuss that with them in private, and hopefully we can mend that in the future.
Exactly. Right? And do you see the difference between, we had our differences, we're not talking right now, I wish we could make it better, and I'm still open to talk to him. Between that and, Blunty, reach out to me, bro, I still want to be friends. Do you see the difference between those two things? There's a subtle difference. One of them is continuing to abuse, and the other is not. Anyway. Yeah, I'm glad you jumped in, Blunty. That's a good context. So anyway, in the spirit of not just like now continuing to muckrake the drama, we've addressed it, we've said our piece. I felt like that was appropriate, especially since someone asked, and now I think we're going to move on. Yeah, Blunty? All good? Anything else?
Sounds good. Let's do it.
Okay,
Lots
let's
of
do it.
questions in the chat.
Yeah, lots of questions. Let's do super chats. Then we'll get some of the regular questions in too. Thank you for $3 from Exiled FPV for the G string. I don't have a G string that you know of. Maybe I'm wearing one right now. You don't know. DL, thank you for a $5 super chat. I just purchased the Crux 3.5 with the HDZero Freestyle V2 VTX. How would you add a GPS module to it? Well, the issue is you got to find a spare UART on the flight controller. Crux 3.5. You may not have a UART spare. That's the issue. So I'm going to try to look this up. This is the Crux 3.5 with the HDZero Freestyle. What flight controller is on here? That's the question. Here's the flight controller. Now, one of these UARTs, so this UART is going to be used. Let me zoom in a little. This is the HDZero plug. This UART is going to be used for HDZero. That's UART 1. UART 6 is not going to be used. Here we've got TX6 and RX6. I'm going to guess that TX6 and RX6 are not used. No, because you have a receiver too. Does this have a built-in receiver? ESP... Does this have a built-in receiver? RX2, TX2. Yes. Okay, so this has a built-in receiver. It appears to be on UART 2. So, okay. So UART 6 appears to be free. I would, assuming that UART 6 is free, I would wire it to TX6 and RX6, and you should be good to go. It does not appear to have an I2C interface, so you will not be able to use a compass if there is one. That's the short answer. And if UART 6 is in use, and UART 2 is in use, and UART 1 is in use, you do not seem to have any additional UARTs, so you're just out of luck. Vast CNC, thank you for a $5 super chat. Disclosure, I'm an investor in the drone industry. I'm asking how you feel about Rotor Riot and UMAC's new motor factory. I don't know. Yeah, I heard about this. I would like to be clear that although I am a Rotor Riot cast member, I don't have any inside information about Unusual Machines' business operation and their motor factory. So anything I say, I want to be really clear that although my name and face are on the Rotor Riot website as a Rotor Riot cast member, that is the extent of my integration with them. I do not have any participation in Unusual Machines as a business or any insider information. So I'll tell you what I think, but... they're opening a 17,000 square foot motor production facility. Here we go. 17,000 square foot motor production facility in Orlando. I think it's great. I mean, I think that more domestic manufacturing is great. I think there is almost no domestic manufacturing of drone motors, and assuming that they make motors and sell them, I think it's fantastic. Will they be good motors? I have no idea. They'll probably be fine. Will the price be competitive? I have no idea. Usually NDAA stuff is more expensive, but Rotor Riot's NDAA flight controller is pretty competitively priced with China manufactured ones, so who knows? Focusing on 2207, 2807, and 3220. That makes sense. 2207 for 5-inch, 2807 for 7-inch, and 3220 probably for 10-inch. Those are common sizes that will be used by Unusual Machines' target market, which is government and military weaponized FPV drones. In-house winding, etc. They signed the lease. So there's a lot of steps between signing the lease and making motors, but they seem to be going full steam ahead. Yeah. I'm not sure what, how I feel about it. I feel like domestic manufacturing is a good thing. I know that hobbyists kind of don't care. Hobbyists will care the more that tariffs start to make foreign stuff expensive. That's kind of the point of tariffs, and it sucks for everybody because everybody pays more. But that's, unless you know how to snap your finger and make the tariff situation different, that's how it is. Go ahead, Blunty.
Stacy's in chat. She says,
"Oh, nice.
Our
FPV
goal is to
Mama.
be price. our goal is to be price competitive. We target no more than 20% over normal China prices.
Yeah, and they've succeeded at that so far with the ESC and flight controller that they've made. I think Rotor Riot, or Unusual Machines, and Rotor Riot are potentially on track to be the first single company to have all of the components of an FPV drone, at least final assembly and manufacturing in the United States. I say that because, like, the magnets for the motors are going to come from China, like, almost certainly. There's almost nowhere else to get magnets, if anywhere else, to get magnets at a competitive price. And that's, of course, an issue that companies are trying to solve. But I mean, what's the downside of this, right? I think it's great. Stacy is the president of Rotor Riot, isn't she?
No, Stacy is now the executive vice president of revenue at UMAC, Universal Machines.
Who's running Rotor Riot? Is that Bubby? Who's running Rotor Riot? Sure. No, she was the president of Rotor Riot. She's moved to UMAC. Okay.
That came out on the 7th of July. I saw that.
Oh, I'm out of the loop. See, I told you I didn't know shit about shit. You guys are like, Bardwell's got secret insider information. I'm going to buy stock based on what he says. Big mistake. Big mistake. Yeah.
I will say.
Yeah.
I just want to say real quick, we talk about a lot of big companies we have in the past on the news and stuff, and very few of them have shown up in chat consistently to discuss things. And I think that level of transparency, who cares if it's filtered or market or whatever, right? It's nice for somebody to show up in chat and have some kind of explanation when we have these discussions. So I don't know. That's great that she's able to still do that with her position.
Yeah. She shows up every time we mention Unusual Machines or Rotor Riot. She shows up in the chat. I have to assume she just watches all my live streams. So thank you, Stacy, for that. Stacy, I will let you know you're. I don't know if this is intentional. You seem to be commenting under two accounts, one being FPV Mama and the other being Stacy Wright. I don't know if that's intentional, but I was missing your comments because Stacy Wright doesn't show up in blue, whereas FPV Mama does. I'm going to go ahead and make Stacy Wright also a moderator, so you show up in blue. But just FYI. Cool. New computer. Yeah, I thought so. All right. Poor taste in porn. Just got into FPV. Your bids made it easy. Thanks, friend. Thank you for a $5 super chat. Poor taste in porn. Really good bad boy. Thank you for a $5 super chat. I'm buying a used TBS 7-inch long-range drone, but no TBS radio. Should I get a TBS module or install ELRS Gemini? I have a GX12. If you have a GX12, I would just put an ELRS receiver in that drone. You could buy a Crossfire module and use it. There's no reason not to, and it would work fine. But I feel like if you have the GX12, you're already kind of invested in the ELRS ecosystem, and it's not that hard. In fact, you don't have to change the wiring or configuration at all. You just swap the new receiver in where the old one was, and you're good to go. So that's probably what I would do. Glad to make a live screen again. The camera looks great. Thank you, Cali FPV, and thanks to Fabio Pansera, my editor and colorist, who helped make this camera look as good as it can. You don't even want to know what it would look like. It would still look pretty good, but the color wasn't as nice. I can never separate from Fabio because my signature look is so distinct. And I've had other colorists. Obviously, I'm not cheating on him with other colorists, but I sometimes have people pop up and they're like, hey, I'm an editor, I'm a colorist, let me edit your stuff. And they'll show me a sample of their work. And every time I'm like, nope. Fabio knows exactly what I want. Octavio Flores, thank you for a $10 super chat. If I buy DJI Goggles 3 from Amazon Japan while in Mexico, can I use them in FCC mode when I'm back in the USA? I believe the answer is yes, although I can't be 100% sure. And my understanding is that DJI Goggles are always unlockable to FCC mode, in case you buy them and then go to the United States to fly, you would need to unlock them. So I do believe they're unlockable, but I'm not 100% sure. Color123, thank you for a $5 super chat. I'm looking for a new quad, and I saw this 7-inch on 4S. I think Mr. Steele's 7-inch. I haven't seen much of it online. What's your thoughts? I don't know what you're talking about. If it's on 4S, especially if it's a 7-inch, that's effed up, and don't do it. The larger your prop, the larger your motor, the more you benefit from higher voltage. That's a very short rule of thumb, but nobody should be running a 7-inch on 4S anymore these days. That's weird, and I don't think you should do it. Thank you, Ratsalad, for a $5 super chat. Ratsalad asks, I'm looking for a 10-inch ardupilot build recommendation, board, etc. motors using Crossfire Freestyle V2. So I think that I would go with a flight controller that can run ardupilot, like the Speedy BF7 can run ardupilot. Like, you could get a Pixhawk flight controller, but it's going to be kind of expensive, and on a 10-inch, I think it's going to be kind of hard to mount. So for ESC, any sort of 60 amp, 55, 65 amp ESC should be okay. For motors, you're going to want like a 31 millimeter motor, like a 30 millimeter or 31 millimeter motor is good for a 10-inch. Like, let me just try and find a sample build. Like, usually, and I'll tell you guys, if you ask me to build a 5-inch, like off the top of my head, I'll know what to pick. A 7-inch, pretty good. I got the KVs and stuff. I don't deal a lot with 10 inches as much as I do with some of the others. So I would have to look it up. And what I always do is I just look for a bind and fly and I just like, I look for a bind and fly and I look at what KV and so forth. So here is a GEP RC 10-inch bind and fly. And I go, okay, what motors does this have? Right? And it just, I may not build this exact thing, but it gets me in the ballpark. So, motor, 3115, 900 kV. Okay. So that's the, 3110, 3115, 30 to 31 millimeter motor, 900 kV. That's on a 6S battery, I assume. I'm pretty sure that's right. So I'm going to get like a 3115-ish motor at 900 kV. For flight controller and ESC, here is an 80 amp 4-in-1. Okay. Well, maybe I just buy the GEP RC Taker stack. I think 80 amp is overkill, but that's fine. Overkill's fine. I don't think you're going to need 80 that much. And then, like, as far as frames go, there are not a ton of 10-inch frames out there, but I probably would, like, GEP RC frames are pretty good frames. I actually have flown the GEP RC 10-inch frame before, and it's done a good job. I probably would steer you in this direction. And see, that's the thing. If you want to do, like, a bunch of research, finding people who've built 10-inch frames, and then, like, emulating, for their wisdom, you can. But, like, a lot of times I'll just find a bind and fly that seems to fit the bill and go, okay, I'm just going to steal that. Right? Okay. Oh, here it is. This is the watch I was looking. This is the $75 version of this watch. This watch is usually, oh, that's not the date. I want the date version. I want the date. Oh, yeah. Oh, that's a good one. That's a lot like the one I'm wearing now, but it doesn't have a chronograph and it doesn't have a date. But then I never use the damn chronograph. But I want it to be there. Add to cart. Somebody asked in the Discord. Somebody asked in the Discord. They bought this exact watch and love it. They said in the Discord, I bought this watch. I love it. What other watches have you got? I'll tell you. I'll show you. Hold on. Little watch update from Bardwell's Land. This is not a super chat, but F you. It's my live stream. I just bought into this Kickstarter. I'm not being paid to promote this. I wish they would pay me to promote this. I would take this watch for free, and I would like promote it. I'd have to be honest about it and be like, well, I saw a Reddit thread, and everybody in the Reddit thread seemed to love this company. And then I did some more research, and everybody on Reddit loves this company. And now they're doing this Kickstarter, and I was excited. So I bought into this Kickstarter. So come September, this is a badass watch. Check this out. The movement, I forget the movements. It's a Sellita. It's a Chinese copy of a Sellita movement, but it's a good movement. Well, at least the movement it's copying is a good movement. Titanium case, chronograph, tritium hands. Tritium on the hands. Oh, I can't wait to get this. How can I see the actual? Show me the actual product page. I can't find. How do I see the rest of the... Is it because I'm a backer? No, I don't want the up there with campaign. Look at that. Ain't that a beauty? Oh, man. I can't wait. See, it's not just Loom, it's Tritium. Anyway. Yeah, I've been trying to find the perfect chronograph watch for me. Just the perfect one that expresses who I am as a person. Anyway, that's coming. I don't know which colorway is going to be the best one. I'm torn. I think it's going to be either the Panda or the Reverse Panda. I'm not sure which is better. Anyway. Thank you for asking. Thank you for giving me an excuse to talk about watches. Tritium has an import restriction. Shut up. Don't take this away from me. Okay. Do you drink coffee or energy drinks? I have coffee most days. I don't drink energy drinks. Usually I wouldn't say I have a caffeine sensitivity, but I'm more sensitive to caffeine than I was when I was younger. And the amount of stimulation that is right for me is less than is in most energy drinks. Japer, thank you for a 25 Hong Kong dollars. Any tips for killing or decreasing high-frequency prop wash? Pros and cons about TBS 915, ELRS 2.4, and if I should switch to ELRS 2.4, 500 hertz. High-frequency prop wash, I mean, ultimately, you're going to decrease filtering. You're going to have less filtering. You're going to have higher degain. That's the short version. Eventually, you'll get super hot motors, and there is a limit to how fast the motors can accelerate that you may be up against. So sometimes you might just want to switch to lower pitch props. If you have a higher pitch prop, that'll smooth things out. You may want to switch to, it's tough because if you go to a bigger motor, it'll have more torque, but sometimes a bigger motor is less responsive because it has more mass. So it's a really fine balancing game when matching motor size to prop size. If you're on a 5-inch quad and you've got like a 2207.5 or a 2208 motor, you probably don't need a bigger motor. You probably have plenty of torque. But keep pushing the filter slider to the right to get less filtering and raise degain, and eventually your motors will be on fire, and that's basically as far as you can go. There is a limit to how far you can go based on the physical construction of your quad. Like at a certain point, there's just so much gyro noise that you can't go any further. And then last thing is, if you're getting prop wash, it is at least somewhat the fault of your flying. So it'd be like if I was driving a car and I said, every time I go around a corner, my tires squeal, right? My tires are squealing. What should I do? And like the back end gets loose. And you could say, well, you need more downforce. You need a wing to get more downforce. You need softer tires to get more grip. But actually, the answer is you need to stop slinging the car into the turn and jamming on the gas and breaking the rear end loose. You need to drive better. And if you have prop wash, to some degree, it's PID tuning, but to some degree, you need to stop flying in a way that brings out the prop wash. And when you see expert pilots like Mr. Steele, like Johnny FPV, I'm old. It's just like if I was saying my favorite musicians and I named bands from the 80s and the 90s, and you're so out of touch. But there you go. When you see your favorite freestyle pilots and they're butter smooth with no prop wash, that's some the PID tune, that's some the mechanical build, and that's some their piloting, and maybe that's the part that you're missing. Michael Jordan, thank you for a $20 super chat. Show us your toolbox and how you have it organized. Michael Jordan, I have no idea how I would do that. Like, I can open up the toolboxes, but how would you see them? I don't know. For $20, I feel like I should at least give it a try. Hold on. There we go. This drawer is a bunch of junk. I have a big pile of battery straps here. These are goggle foam right here. Here are some power cables. Small battery straps for small drones. These are some some shell clips for RC cars. I don't know why that's there. Here is a bag, a goggle bag. This is just random shit. Here is a Nintendo Switch that my son got once upon a time and then stopped playing, and my wife was going to just give it away to one of his friends or something. I was like, don't give that away. And so now it just sits in my drawer and should do a giveaway and give away this Nintendo Switch because no one's using it. MISC HDZero monitor, battery, MISC GPS. Here's a RunCam Open IP. Okay, I don't know why that's there. I got my goggles over here on this side. Controller usually lives here, although it's currently in my backpack. Goggles. This side's goggles. Okay, enough. Parts. Drone parts. Motors. Cameras. VTXs. Receivers. MISC BS. Mostly. Oh my god, look at this. Haha! How you like that, folks? How you like that? Remember that? Oh, you can't get that anymore, can you? Good times. This is mostly digital VTXs that I've pulled out of various birds and I'm saving for later. These are transmitter modules and antennas. Bunch of antennas, a bunch of RC controller modules, Express ELRS, etc. Props of various sizes. Props, larger props. No, this is more parts. Frame parts. A bunch of Raspberry Pis. This was props once upon a time. It's not anymore. Props. Props. Oh my god. I have so many. I have more props than I will ever use. I assure you. I didn't even remember these props were in here. I'm like, oh, I have a bunch of ethics props. How about that? I'm a bad person. Okay. Batteries here. Batteries over there. Controllers. Bunch of controllers here. MISC BS in the bottom drawer. I don't know. I hope that's what you wanted. It's something, anyway. Callie Wolf, thank you for 30 Australian dollars. Dollar days. Australian. Oi! I got a Radiomaster boxer. It's me first non-DJI remote. Is there a guide on what I should do with all these toggles and buttons and knobs? Nah. There's so many of them. Oh, I'm so sorry. I apologize to the what is Australia a state? Is it a city? Is it a continent? I apologize to the continent of Australia and its people. I got a Callie. Let's start over. Callie Wolf, thank you for 30 Australian dollars. I got a Radiomaster Boxer. It's my first non-DJI remote or radio. Is there a guide to what I should do with all these buttons and knobs? There's so many. No, you make it up. That's the beautiful thing. That's the beautiful thing about, but also the sort of the blessing and the curse. There is sort of a standard way that people sometimes do it, but nobody can agree. Like most people put their arm switch on the left, but then some people want the arm switch to be on the right so they can manipulate the throttle while they do the arm switch. It's really entirely up to you. Like you can go through like how I set it up, Joshua, Bardwell, aux modes. You can go through how I set it up. Build an FPV drone in 2023, Betaflight aux modes. Sub 250 gram FPV drone build, Betaflight aux modes. That will show you how like I set up some switches. But you're not going to use all the switches. And eventually you'll be like, wait, I want to do this other thing. And then you'll use one of those extra switches. Part of the problem is you don't know what your drone does. Like you need an arm switch. You need a buzzer switch. You need a turtle mode switch. You need an angle mode switch. Oh, do you not know what all those things are? Well, there you go. So as you start to figure out what you want your drone to do, you will start to figure out how to lay out the switches and so forth. But you could start with one of these videos, which will show you a basic way that I set a controller up, and you can go from there. Marty Sepp, thank you for €6. Theoretically, is it possible to create a build to fly up and down the Matterhorn? 4.4 kilometers, 15,000 feet. Yes, absolutely possible. So 4.4 kilometers plus you're going to climb, right? 15,000 feet of climb. Now, I don't know how many kilometers that is. Like, somebody needs to do the triangle math, right? Also, curse you for mixing kilometers and feet. That's really unhelpful. But basically, you need to know how far your drone has to fly and come back. Okay? Let's do the math. Screw it. I can't resist a math problem. It's oh, I see. That was a conversion. So it's 4.5 kilometers, but how high are you climbing? Right? That's the question. You need to go 4.5 kilometers. Let's assume, for the sake of argument, that when you say 4.5 kilometers, you mean the straight line distance between your camp and the peak. In other words, your drone has to traverse a distance of 4.5 kilometers. Now, you're going to need more battery power than if you just flew straight out and back, because you're also climbing, okay? But suffice it to say, you're going to need to go at least 4.4 kilometers out and then come back, at least 8.8 kilometers. And you're going to want some headroom for that. I would try to build a drone with a range of about 10 kilometers. This is non-trivial, okay? You're not going to do that by accident. Blunty, you trying to jump in?
Yeah, I got a question.
Yeah.
Okay, so if you're flying up and then back down, does that take more energy than flying straight out and straight back?
Good question. I'm going to make up the answer because you're spending more energy going up, but you're saving energy coming down.
You got it. I don't know the answer.
I would guess that it is more efficient to go out and back and stay in your efficiency range, your RPM range that's most efficient, as opposed to, I think you're going to lose more by going, as you go up in the RPM curve, as you go up in the throttle curve, the motor efficiency peaks somewhere around, say, 40 or 50% of the throttle. I don't know exactly where, it depends on the motor. And then it goes up, the efficiency goes way down as you go to higher RPMs. So if you have to go to 75% throttle to go up, but then you come down at 25% throttle, I think you're potentially at a net negative compared to just staying at 45% throttle the whole way. But that's just a wild ass guess. That's not based on any facts.
Chad also reminds us that because we're going up high enough, we're going to lose some density. So we're also going to lose thrust. So just from an energy standpoint. Yeah, just from an energy standpoint, you're going to spend more energy.
Yeah, so if he says that 4.4 kilometers is the height from base camp. So we don't even know the distance. Oh my God. What's the lateral distance you need to traverse between base camp and the peak? You're going up 4.4 kilometers and you're going to go over at least, I don't know, a kilometer, 2 kilometers. So like you're actually, like you have to do the triangle calculation to find out. But it's like 6. I think you're going to want, oh, it's a way longer distance. How long is the distance? Someone tell me. Don't make me look it up. Someone tell me.
Also, remember to make sure, even if you don't have permission to fly, make sure you're flying in a place you're not going to piss everyone off. I just want to point that out.
Yeah. Okay, so you need to know how much endurance you need to complete the flight. And I think that if you're going up 4.4 kilometers and then over some number of kilometers, right? Like we're going to be looking at, I might want a comfortable 15 or 20 kilometers of endurance just to be sure I would make it home. So that's a non-trivial build to make. You're talking about probably a 10-inch minimum a big-ass battery, and a lot of testing. That's the other thing. Don't just go to the Matterhorn and be like, well, I guess it's time to try out my new build. You would need to have a lot of testing before you even gave it a try. I think 10-inch minimum, big lithium-ion battery. Anyway, I think that's enough for that. Thank you for the donation. 42 kilometers? That's impossible. If it's 42 kilometers linear distance over and 4.4 kilometers height, that's like a 40 kilometer multi-rotor is exceptional. That's like very, very difficult to get a multi-rotor to fly that long, especially at the Matterhorn. Yeah, you're going to want to be fixed wing for sure. There's so many technical challenges to going 40 kilometers. Like going 2 to 5 kilometers is easy. Going 10 kilometers is not that hard. Going 20 kilometers takes some work, but can be done with reasonable effort. And going 25, 30, 40 kilometers is very, very hard. For a multi-rotor. For a wing, absolutely. So that's my advice. Build a wing. Rog FPV, thank you for $5. Do you think I should go with Walksnail due to DJI probably pulling from the U.S. market? I think the DJI situation is still up in the air. I don't think we'll know the final disposition of DJI in the U.S. market until whenever that expiration date is for the U.S. agency must make a determination that they're safe. DJI is still trying to get that done. There was recently an instruction that it should be completed within 30 days, and DJI was like, no, 30 days is not nearly long enough. I think that's still up in the air. I think, Blunty, do you remember when that date is? It's toward the end of the year. I think it's December. Do you happen to know or no? Sometimes Blunty knows these things. Okay. I think it's December. And so I think by the end of the year, we will have a much better picture on if DJI is essentially permanently out of the U.S. market or not. I think that it seems like it's going that way. But like if I was trying to make buying decisions of whether I'm going to just abandon DJI or I'm going to go Walksnail or whatever, I would probably try to wait it out.
It's December 23rd.
December 23rd. Merry effing Christmas. Happy Hanukkah. So should you go Walksnail today? I mean, if that situation resolves itself and DJI becomes available again, you might wish you hadn't jumped. Can you wait? It's a long time to wait, but it's not forever. Currently, I'm telling people who are saying, I'm just getting into the hobby, should I pick DJI? I'm saying, no, don't. Go analog and wait it out. Because currently, it's very, very hard to get a hold of DJI stuff in the USA. And I don't think, even if you lucked out and somehow got a set of goggles, you would still not be able to buy other stuff and potentially be setting yourself up for heartbreak. Is Walksnail an acceptable substitute for DJI? For a lot of people, yeah, it holds up. It's not as good as DJI, but, you know, it's like we have DJI at home. All those Russians were probably pretty happy to be driving a Lada. They couldn't get a Honda. It's a better car, but it's what you got. I just compared Walksnail to the Lada, which if you know anything about the Lada, that's pretty insulting. I didn't mean that. Reference quad, Cine ELRS optimal O4 antenna bend. I love it when people leave a $2 super chat and can't fit any text in. Optimal to have the antenna as far from the frame as possible and facing up in the air. I'm not really sure. Optimal antenna bend? Have it. Yeah. I've got a question in the Discord. It says Daisy FPV. Okay. Let's see if I can find that. From Daisy FPV. For my super chat. My 5-inch 2125 kV motors, Lucid H7 stack, cleanish build, get lots of oscillations for a second or two when throttling on, then it goes away. Increasing determ makes it worse, but reduce. Yeah, Daisy, I had a problem like this with my Lucid H7 stack. I believe that there are noise issues with the Lucid H7 stack. TBS has made some revisions to the Lucid hardware that you will probably find out about soon when the last rev sells through. They moved the ESC plug so that the wire doesn't have to run underneath the flight controller. In my situation, it was noise issues causing D-shot packets to not get through. And when you punch the throttle, it would kind of go, and then settle down. Thank you. Clip that. It sounds like you're describing exactly what I saw. I ran into this. There were 10 or 15 builds that I was working with, all identical builds, all having this same problem with the Lucid H7, and we did everything we could to troubleshoot it, and eventually we swapped in a Maytech H7, and whoops, suddenly the problem went away, and we're like, okay, I guess it's a flight controller. There was some troubleshooting with black box, which showed that D-shot packets were not getting through. So one thing you could do is you can go down to D-shot 300. Another thing you can do is if you've got your ESC wire running between the flight controller and the ESC, take it out so it's not running between the flight, or rotate the flight controller 90 degrees so the wire's coming out the side. But it is a noise issue causing D-shot packets to not get to the ESC, and it causes that issue. I have been in your exact state with this confusing oscillation. Yeah. There should be a revision to the H7. So we took it back to... So full disclosure... Well, not full disclosure, but some disclosure. We took it back to TBS and was like, hey, TBS, we're having this problem with your boards. And TBS said, how weird. We haven't encountered this in all of our testing. So... And I haven't heard anyone else talk about it, so I just assumed I was the weirdo. But now you're talking about it, so I'm bringing it up, so you know you're not alone. But I don't want to give the impression that the H7 stack is like fundamentally flawed in some way. A lot of people seem to be using it with no problem, but I certainly had this problem, and now you are too. It's electrical noise causing D-shot packets to get lost. Go to D-shot 300. Try to clean up all sources of electrical noise between the flight controller and the ESC, and then cross your freaking fingers. That's what I would say. Right. Oh, can't rotate. USB is wrong direction. Good point. I didn't think of that. Rotate the ESC. Rotate the ESC 90 degrees. Yeah, okay. Do I need a new flight controller? I don't think so. I was able to resolve this issue by scrupulously cleaning up all potential sources of electrical noise. You shouldn't have to do that, was my argument. And so I considered it to be a problem with the flight controller that I believed that TBS needed to fix, and brought that back to TBS. And to finish that thought, TBS said, we have never seen this. We are unable to reproduce this. But TBS took steps. Even though their position was, I don't think there's anything wrong with our flight controller, they took steps to mitigate the issue in future builds. I don't think TBS considers this to be like, oh, we're doing a recall, we're going to replace your flight controller, if that's what you're asking, that's what someone's asking. I don't think they consider it to be a defect in that sense, but in order to just make sure that everything was as good as possible for as many people as possible, they did make some changes to the layout of the flight controller to try to reduce noise. Do you know of a good way to get into flying, some cinematic flying, like at a go-kart track or some RC park I want to get into? Thank you for $5 super chat, shoot FPV. Start doing cinematic flying without moving targets. Do cinematic flying like building fly-throughs or building fly-arounds, landscape flying. Then get your buddy on a bicycle and get your buddy to ride a bicycle or a one-wheel and chase him, a skateboard, right? Start learning how to track a moving target, right? Or just F it. I think you should find a drift gathering, like a bunch of drift car drivers get together in a parking lot. I don't mean one of those like intersection takeovers, although maybe, but like usually drift car drivers are pretty cool dudes and they're not real too worried about you crashing into their car because they beat the shit out of their car anyway. And if you find a drift meetup and you're like, hey, can I fly my drone? Usually they'll be thrilled to let you fly your drone. That's what I would do. A go-kart track might be a little more hesitant. They may be like, oh, I don't know, liability, blah, blah, blah. But a drift meetup, people don't really care. Follow an RC car. That's a great example. How durable is the GoPro 11 Mini? I don't know. The GoPro 11 Mini, I think it's pretty durable, but nothing is, because it doesn't have a screen to break, and the screen is usually the thing that breaks. What about the Osmo Action 3? I have no experience with the Osmo Action 3. So double check that. I'm pretty sure that. Yeah, I have no experience. I can't say the Osmo Action 3. Anything with a screen is going to be less durable than something without a screen, though. Marty Sepp, thank you for $2.49, and a big thank you for the answers and the calculations. And Broke My Fat Strap says, thank you for $7 Canadian. Back to the hobby from 2022 and Betaflight 4.3. How much Betaflight has changed since then, particularly in filter and PID tuning? Not much has changed in the filter and PID tuning, to be honest with you, between 4.3, 4.4, and 4.5. Your basic principles still apply. So that's good news. Thank you, Ray Clifford, for a $5 super chat. Back up. A lot of what's changed in Betaflight is support for GPS. That's much more sophisticated now in 4.5 and 4.6 than it was. Ray Clifford, thank you for €5. I got drunk with friends last night, put my goggles somewhere. If you were me, where would you have put them? In my backpack. Backseat of my car. I don't know. Hope you find your goggles, Ray. Barnabas Koksis, probably mispronounced that. Thank you for 1,000 Hungarian florins. I built an FPV, and when I do a flip, it disarmed itself and crashed. What was wrong? Oof. Did it say runaway in screen? That would mean a motor failed. You got to figure out why it disarmed. Did it disarm, or did it, did you have a motor fail and it started to spin and disarmed itself? On top of the refrigerator. That's a good guess. I'm not going to do a poll. Everybody in chat, tell me where you think he lost his goggles. On top of the refrigerator. In the fridge, says Ciati. And Space Ghost. Always in the fridge. In the swimming pool, you're doomed. Below the car seats. In the microwave. There you go. Yeah, Barnabas, I would want to know if you have a failed motor. Basically, I would ask you to send me DVR. And if you email me, jb@joshuabardwell.com, and send me DVR, I'll look at it and I'll see if I can figure out what happened. But the number one thing I would be looking at is if the quad disarmed itself like you hit the disarm switch, or if the quad disarmed itself because it detected an error condition like a failed motor. And you can tell that by looking in the DVR at the on-screen display. Dennis Smith, thank you for a $10 super chat. Thanks for all the educational videos, flying, Betaflight, etc. What brand is your toolboxes and the link for purchase? The brand is Rousseau, Rousseau, Rousseau cabinets. You are welcome to purchase them. I will tell you, the cabinets that you see behind me are like $3,000. And the cabinet you don't see to the other side, like the total for these cabinets was like $5,000 to $6,000. And I'm like some people, like my buddy just sent me. Hang on, I'll show you. Hold on. I gotta screen cap this because I don't want to share the whole chat. My buddy just sent me this watch he bought. I'm gonna screen cap it. You guys are gonna freaking love this. He just sent me this watch he bought. Here we go. My buddy just sent me this watch he bought. That there is a $12,000 watch. And he said, and I was like, good for you, bro. Congratulations. Big fan. And he said, you know, you're a successful guy. You're at the top of your field. You should buy yourself a watch. So when you walk in the room, you got something on your wrist. This watch, $100 from China. Now, I'm not saying I'm above buying an expensive watch. I'm not saying I'm such a frugal person. I'm better than you because I have a $100 watch. I don't make it a part of my identity that I have a cheap watch. I just my daily beater is going to be a freaking watch that I don't care if it gets beat to shit. But he was like, you should buy an expensive watch just so people know you've arrived. And I was like, I don't know. I don't see it. I just don't think I could. I just don't think I want to spend that much on an expensive watch. If I were to spend $10,000 on some splurge, whatever it would be, I don't think that would be it. It's a beautiful watch. And I'm just, yeah, Blunty.
Sorry, I would guess it would be car money if you were going to do something with that money over watches. At least I've heard you talk way more about cars and
for example, would I spend 10 grand on like a really specced out racing simulator, like an iRacing simulator rig? I would be so much more likely to spend 10 grand on an iRacing sim rig than I would on a watch. 1,000%. I would get so much enjoyment out of that. I also didn't buy that. But somewhere around 2020, I had that moment where some people buy a watch. You go, you know what? I'm doing pretty well for myself. I got a little bit of money in the bank. I'm going to splurge. I'm going to spend a little bit of money on something that's more expensive than it needs to be just because it's nice and I want it to be nice and I want to look like a professional. I want people to walk in the room and be like, damn, this guy's made it. And I bought these fucking tool cabinets. I spent $5,000 on these stupid cabinets. That's what I bought instead of an Omega Seamaster, Jason. It doesn't fit on my wrist, but by God. I'd never thought of it that way. I'm really pleased with myself. Robin Bird, thank you for a $5 super chat. Sonar how-to video for Betaflight. Can Betaflight even do sonar? Don't do sonar. Betaflight, like technically, I think it supports sonar sensors. It doesn't support sonar. It has no meaningful support for sonar, as far as I know. It may technically have the drivers to run a sonar. Nobody's doing sonar support on Betaflight. If you want sonar, use ardupilot or iNav. That is the truth. If Betaflight even supports sonar, which I'm not even sure it does, like technically, I think there is a sonar like icon. Technically, I think Betaflight can use, but nobody is actually working on support for sonar. And if it does support it, it works like shit. If it works at all, don't do it. If you need sonar support, use iNav or ardupilot, period. Is the best drone also a good beginner drone? Yeah. Good beginner drones are also good drones the rest of the time. I will say that. Like the Air 65, it's a little bit... the Air 65 focuses on lightweight, and I might want a little bit more durability from a beginner drone, but ultimately Air 65 is a fine beginner drone. Like if you buy a drone that's a baby beginner drone, like it has like the Beta FPV Aquila, which has like altitude hold, and it's like it flies like shit, but it's got these beginner safety modes to try to make it easier to fly. Okay, I wouldn't suggest you do that though. You can get a very good drone as a beginner drone and keep flying it for a long time. Okay, then let's say I want to fly a wing to the top of Mount Everest and back. I can buy a drone flight license. What do I have to do to pull that off? Signal booster? Like, Marty Sepp, I don't... What kind of distance are we talking about? Distance from base camp to Everett summit. 20 kilometers. The climbing distance is around 20 kilometers, not including the hike to the base camp. Distance can vary. Okay, so the straight line distance is going to be different than that, but let's use 20 kilometers. Let's say we need a minimum 40-kilometer flight. The very first thing you need to do is you need to figure out how to be in the air for 40 kilometers or more because you want some headroom, right? Like I would add at least 10%, if not more. Let's say 45 or 50 kilometers is my goal. Okay? If you can't build a drone that flies 50 kilometers in a circle, in other words, you set up an autonomous waypoint mission to fly in a box for 50 kilometers. If you can't do that today, you don't even need to start thinking about Everest. Okay? Can we get that out of the way? So, it's like you said, well, I want to build a spaceship that goes to the moon. Where should I get started? I'd be like, well, start with model rockets. Okay? Start with a wing and buy yourself a good flying wing. Just pick one. Try to buy one like maybe a little bit bigger. Buy one that's a little more focused on endurance than on like speed and maneuverability. But just start somewhere and see how long it flies. How many minutes does it spend in the air? And how far does it go? That's your starting point. Now you start trying to stretch your legs. Can you put a bigger battery on it? Can you put a lower kV motor? Can you put a bigger prop on it? And eventually you'll have one that goes 50 kilometers. But I'm not just going to be like, yeah, what you need is 13-inch prop, 700 kV motor, 6S battery, good to go. That's like saying I'm going to build a submersible to go below the ocean. Where do I get started? Well, just, titanium hull, acrylic viewport, oxygen tanks, Logitech game controller, good to go. No, there's a lot to it. As far as distance, you want to go 40 kilometers. Signal booster could work. Probably with 900 megahertz, you probably could go 40 kilometers with a high gain antenna, like a 13 dB Yagi pointed straight at it. The good thing with a wing versus a multirotor, as Morton Upshot points out, is the wing is going to spend most of its energy climbing and it will glide down. It will use almost no energy on the descent. So maybe you don't need 50 kilometers. Maybe you only need like 30 kilometers. That's true. That's a really good point. You could literally just glide down with the motor idling or off. Honestly, I'm not an expert on long range stuff, so you really shouldn't be asking me anyway. What stack AIO for a sub 250 2.5 inch 4S build? The SpeedyB all-in-one is a good choice. I use the Lumineer Lux all-in-one on my sub 250 build. Both of those are solid choices. Oh my God, we're finally caught up. Let's take some questions that aren't super chats. Here we go. Do I get booted out of the Discord if I stop being a Patreon subscriber? Asks Bojack. You don't get booted out, but you lose access to almost all of the channels. So there you go. That's the answer.
Yeah, if you don't know,
you can
sign up for JB's. You can sign up for JB's Patreon to get access to the Discord, where you can find my help and other people's help whenever we're around, and then also just communicate with other people who are doing drone stuff. Ask your questions, look at builds. Also, we have a buy-sell trade, which we're not responsible for, but plenty of people are using all the time. So,
yeah, it's a good server. I think you should join. I mean, absolutely. So one of the it's like the only actual incentive to join my Patreon, other than the desire to support me. Bardwell casually roasting millionaires. When did I roast millionaires? I don't even know what that means.
The sub thing. He did the sub thing.
The sub thing? The Submariner?
He made a sub joke.
Sub joke.
Is Submersible where the Xbox controller? You did the joke?
Oh, yeah. That's the Titan Gate. Yeah, that's the Logitech controller. That was the joke. Yes. Glad you got it. I do like roasting people. What's a good bench power supply? You may know that I have a website, fpvknowitall.com. Some of the pages aren't updated very often, but some of them have been updated recently. And do I have power supplies on here? Oh, I don't. I kind of thought I did. I guess I don't. Okay. Well, never mind. That plug just failed. I've looked at some power supplies recently, and found here is a. Well, it's out of stock. But what are you gonna do? So the ISDT, I would feel pretty good about the ISDT 24 volt 600 watt just based on ISDT's brand name. Now that's you could like get some cheap ass Chinese power supply for way less. But if you want like a brand you feel like you can trust, I think ISDT is that. Currently it's sold out. Here's a Toolkit RC one, which is only 450 watts. It was way cheaper. Toolkit RC to me has a little bit more questionable QC. I'm not sure I would be as confident about it sort of lasting. But that's the kind of thing you're going to be looking for. Meanwhile, hello, friend. That's what I'm talking about. Yeah, cheapo Chinese, 360 watts, 28 bucks. That's where I would go. Yeah,
he was talking about like a PSU, like a bench power supply.
Oh, got you. Like adjustable. Honestly, I would just
that charger is like out. Some chargers can output like bench power.
Yeah. No, the P200 is a power supply though, not a charger.
Oh, it's a bench supply.
Yeah, no, I love this thing. Honestly, I would just buy another P200. I've had my P200 for years. It's been so good to me. And if it died tomorrow, I would immediately buy another one and feel like I got my money's worth out of it. Now, maybe the QC has changed. It is a Toolkit RC product, and Toolkit RC has sketchy QC sometimes. But I've had mine for years. It's been fine, and I would buy another one in a heartbeat. Depending on how long you had your P200, you may not feel that way. I think you're going to have a hard time doing as well as the P200 for less than $100, especially at that size. Now, otherwise, I would just go to Amazon, and I would just look for a power supply. Right? And I would just like, okay, I would just like try to find one with a good review. I'm sorry. I know that's like, you want my insight. I don't have any insight. I'm just going to go down. Oh, this one looks good. It's $50, 30 volts, 10 amps. Okay. Got some knobs. How are the reviews? Good reviews? Oh, here we go. I can get a bigger one. Oh. And you know what I mean? Like that's it's half the price of the P200 and comparable specs, maybe a little bit better specs. No, I'm not sure. It's bigger. It's not gallium nitride. That's the difference. So it's bigger. But like for a bench supply, I'm not sure how much that matters. Yeah, that's my honest answer. What are the wires you used on the VTX and the 3-inch drone build video? If we go to my website, fpvknowitall.com, and find my shopping list, we can find the wires that I used there. Solder, heat shrink tubing, wire. It is these silicon wire assortment. On Amazon, you can find it here. I think 24 or 26 gauge is fine for that kind of thing. Maybe 28 gauge if you want it a little smaller. It's not carrying very much current. I wouldn't go much smaller than 28, though. Somewhere between 24 and 28, I think, is a good place to be. And it's silicon insulation, very good. Bagzilla, 100%. The O4 Lite has problems with RockSteady. When it's turned on, you get shaking, and there are things you can do to like soft mount the camera and fix it. But yes, if you have shaking in the O4 Lite board with RockSteady on, turn RockSteady off, and it will go away. Is ordering Tattoo R-line batteries from AliExpress a good idea? I mean, most of the time, the thing is, AliExpress is just a marketplace of sellers, so it all depends on the seller. Maybe the seller is legit, maybe the seller is sketchy. Okay? If it's the Tattoo official store, you're probably fine. Now you may be hit with a tariff, depending on how they price it. Sometimes the store will say the tariffs are taken care of, and they'll ship it in a way that the shipper pays the tariff for you. And sometimes you'll buy them and they'll ship them, and then the tariff, you'll get hit with a tariff, and then like I just got this is the updated flight controller that I told you about earlier from TBS. They're like, here, take it, test it. This came to me in the mail, and then I got a $60 bill from UPS. Isn't that nice? So, what video system and RX system would you recommend for FPV racing? Also, do racers use 5-inch quads? Yes, most racing uses 5-inch quads. There is a 7-inch format called Street League. Or the other one, what's the other 7-inch spec class?
Pro? Was it Pro Spec? Yeah.
Pro Spec?
Multi-GP Pro Spec.
Multi-GP
right?
Pro Spec, thank you. I did a whole video about it, and then I forgot the name. Sorry, Multi-GP. Sorry, Chris Thomas. I'm a bad person. So Pro Spec and Street League are a 7-inch spec league. Most racing is 5-inch. There's a 3-inch spec league called Freedom Spec. No, that's 5-inch. Tiny Trainer spec racing. That's it. That's 3-inch. And then there's Whoop Racing, which is usually 65 and 75 millimeter wheelbase. Those are the main ones. But like when you think of drone racing, you're probably thinking of 5 inches. As far as video system, analog or HDZero are the ones that almost all racers use, and almost all race organizers would like you to use, either analog or HDZero. And for control link, Express LRS is by far the most popular, although some people are still using Ghost or Crossfire. If you're starting out from scratch, I think Express LRS would be the one to get. Should I buy a used Caddx Vista for $50, or should I buy an O4 Pro? I mean, part of it depends on what goggles you get. I assume you have the Goggles 2 or the Goggles Integra, since those are the only goggles that are compatible with both a Vista and an O4 Pro. Assuming you have the Goggles 2 or Integra, then it's kind of just like, where do you want to spend your money? The O4 Pro is way better video, way better image quality, but also like 4 times the price. Which version of the Radiomaster Pocket should I get? Asks Aman. Should I get the CC2500? It's cheaper. No, you should get the Express LRS version. If you're starting from scratch, there is no reason to buy the CC2500. It will not bind to any of the receivers that you should be buying. It only binds to old last generation receivers. If you are somebody who already has a bunch of quads with old last generation receivers in them, it might make sense for you to buy the CC2500 version so you can use it with your existing stable of quads. But if you're starting from scratch, there is no reason for you to buy the old receivers, and in many cases you won't be able to buy them. That CC2500 radio is basically going to be wasted if you're starting from scratch, and so you should buy the Express LRS version, even though it's more expensive. Do you see a future where 3D printed quad frames are good quality and worth printing with new filaments like PLA-CF? No, not really. The issues with 3D printed quadcopter frames are the same as long as you're doing any of the FDM and many of the SLA filaments. It's that the issue is this. I'll make it as short as possible because I've talked about 3D printed quad frames a lot. The issue is that in order for a 3D printed quadcopter frame to be good, it has to be designed. It can't just be made out of sheet material, because 3D printed sheets are inferior in every way to carbon fiber sheets. You can't just 3D print a regular frame and have it be anywhere near usable compared to a carbon fiber frame. It's going to be so much heavier, et cetera, et cetera. If you optimize a 3D printed frame with like organic curves and shapes, you can get something, especially if it's like 3 inches and below. You can get something that is usable, but the problem is that as soon as you crash it, it will break, and then you have to 3D print a whole new one instead of just swapping an arm. So those problems are the same for any 3D printed filament. They're worse with some and better with others, but the fundamental problem remains. You need a lot of stiffness and a lot of strength, and 3D printed materials, especially FDM and most SLA, just don't accomplish that. You could say, okay, well, I've got a printer that can do metal sintering. I can literally 3D print metal parts. Okay, you got me. Maybe that's good enough. But that's silly. I don't know, Samus Aran, if you heard, but there's no fun allowed in my streams ever since me and Blunty took over. Yeah, it's a no fun zone. Blunty, I don't know if you heard that. I was told on Facebook that ever since you started doing streams with me, it's a no fun zone. And I was like, what do you mean? And he's like, well, I made one comment and got timed out or banned from the channel. And I was like, okay, well, that didn't happen. Unless you made a completely egregious comment, no one gets banned from the channel for one comment. You would get timed out. So if you got banned from the channel, you just had a history of bad behavior. I don't know. Blunty, do you agree? I didn't want to speak for you, Blunty, but I was like, there's no world in which me or Blunty banned you from the channel for one comment, unless it was a absolutely egregious comment.
That's correct. Or maybe if you came in and like spammed a question like 30 times, you might get banned. Like there's some like people who, if you choose not to participate in the community, or maybe you said something really horrible,
right?
Like you would get banned. I'll tell you too, people don't think this happens. Even if you change your name, there is now a history in YouTube of every chat you've ever made in this chat. You can right click on a person and see their activity.
Oh, yeah.
So if you do something in chat and I right click and see like 5 days of this shit, then you might get a permanent ban, but it's because you've had repeated activity that's happened. That's what I would say.
Yeah. So he was like, no fun allowed. And I was like, so you acted up in the channel and you got banned. Yeah, just one comment. I'm like, uh-huh. Okay. Let's see here. What's the best way to change channel mapping on existing models of my radio if all are set to TAER? I want to have one model for test, the other drones which are set to AETR. There's no way in MOS to change the channel mapping on existing models. You just have to change it one by one. It's frustrating, but that's just like how it is. Yeah, Blunty.
I agree with you, but also you can technically do this if you change the mode, right? Because you change what the sticks are? I always get confused about how this works.
If you change the stick mode, okay. The stick mode is a global setting. No. Yeah, there's the default. There's the default.
Yes. The channel order.
Yeah. The channel order, the default channel order in the radio settings only affects new models. The control stick mode is universal. So if you were to change the control stick mode, but then the problem is like it's going to think your throttle is on the right instead of the left, and it's going to not let you arm because your throttle isn't all the way down. If you change the mode, it's going to reshuffle your sticks. It's not going to reshuffle. So then you will reshuffle the channel order, but then like it's going to think your throttle, it's going to think your pitch stick is the throttle and your throttle is the pitch stick, and it's going to be like, hey, your throttle's not all the way down, and not let you arm. You're going to have to like hold pitch down to arm, and then it's going to be all messed up. See what I mean?
Oh, right, because it's just changing what A means, not where A is. Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure that would work.
No, you're right. Yeah, you need to go in and change the channels.
Manually. Yeah, sorry. I've somehow scratched the conformal coating on my flight controller. Can I use nail varnish to seal it up? I guess you could, but I would probably just buy some silicone conformal coating, which is probably what's currently on there. Buy some silicone conformal coating. I don't know how acrylic nail varnish will interface with silicone conformal coating, or whether it will work. How it will work. I get so nervous when I'm about to arm. When does that go away? Probably never. I always get a little nervous the first time I arm, and then I go fly, and it, falls away. Are HDZero box goggles good? Asks Ray Clifford with a €2 super chat. Short answer, yes. Yes, they're very good. If you want box goggles, they're very good. They're probably the best box goggles you can buy today. I think that's safe to say. Is it possible that you can put obstacle avoidance on an FPV drone? The thing is, Betaflight doesn't support obstacle avoidance with LiDAR sensors. iNav might support obstacle avoidance with LiDAR sensors. I'm not sure. ardupilot definitely does. The issue is that generally the firmware that supports sophisticated obstacle avoidance, like ardupilot, is not optimized for acro flying, which is usually what an FPV drone is doing. Right? So you could build an ardupilot FPV drone that flies like shit, but that has amazing autonomous flying with obstacle avoidance and position hold and so forth. But at that point, why did you build an FPV drone? Why didn't you just build like a camera style drone? If you're not, if you want it to fly good, it's going to be running Betaflight or maybe iNav, and then the obstacle avoidance is going to be inferior. The thing is, you don't want obstacle avoidance with an FPV acro drone. You want to control the drone. That's like saying, hey, I bought an aerial Atom. This is like, for all I know, it has freaking, I don't know. For all I know, it has like anti-lock brakes and cruise control. I don't think it does. Right? But take my point. That's like saying I bought an aerial Atom, this stripped down, open frame track car. And I also want it to have cruise control and anti-lock braking, and I want it to have anti-skid, spin out, and all this nanny modes. No! I bought this car because I want to drive it around the track. I want to make it spin out or not spin out. I want it to do what I tell it to do, and I don't want a bunch of computers sitting between me and the road. That's why I bought this car. I didn't buy this car. But that's what this car is made for, right? So then you say, I'm going to build an FPV drone. Oh, but I want it to have obstacle avoidance. No! If an FPV drone has obstacle avoidance, then when I try to fly through a gap, it's going to go, whoa, and it's going to kick in, and it's not going to let me do it. Right? You see the point? Oh, what's the... Damn it. Oh, man. Oh. Yeah. Yeah, you think you could do this with obstacle avoidance? You think you could do this with obstacle avoidance? That obstacle avoidance would be kicking in all the time. Oh, obstacle avoidance. Have to stop. No, we don't want obstacle avoidance on this drone because we couldn't do what we need to do. So, yeah. Okay. This isn't the video I was looking for. I think it's Phoenix FPV. Is it Phoenix? Yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, shit. Oh, this video gives me such a boner. Sorry, kids. Oh, my God. Oh. This video is so good. This is so good. I cannot believe this guy. This is such a good flight. There's so many moments in here where you're just like, shut up. And he just keeps doing it. It's insane. What about the Avata 2? It's not a freestyle drone. It's a camera drone. I don't even know if Avata 2... Does Avata 2 even have obstacle avoidance? Like, do you understand why this is impossible with obstacle avoidance? You just need to be flying the damn drone. Yeah, do that with obstacle avoidance. Could you do it? No, Betaflight can't do it. Oh, crap. Did you see that? Like, hey, I crashed. No, I didn't. I'm going to do an inverted yaw spin. Was that a cut? Was there a cut there? Tap, and I don't think there was a cut there. Maybe there was. Maybe that was a tricky cut. If it was a cut, it was a really smooth cut. So freaking good. It was a cut. Okay. I thought it might. It was a good cut. It was a smooth cut. I can just go back and watch this video again and again. Oh, so good. How does he not crash? I mean, he does crash. There's a version of this where he shows all the crashes. And he hides a lot of cuts in here. I'm not even mad about it that he hides the cuts. Like, oh my God, right? Shut up! Shut up! Shut up! That's wild! That's so wild! So wild. He's so good. Oh, he knows this place inside and out. It's so clear that he knows where all the gaps are. He just dives in. Oh, which way's up? I don't know. So good. So freaking good. Was that a cut? That might have been a cut. I'm getting better at seeing the cuts, I think. Insane, man. Insane. That was a cut. Nice cut. I see what he's doing. Oh, there was a crossfade. Anyway, thank you for the opportunity. That video is No Limits by Phoenix FPV, F-E-N-I-X. Just one of my favorite FPV videos of all time, hands down. No question. How is it possible to wire two ESCs to one flight controller for an octocopter? Do you parallel wire the outputs? No, the flight control. So you can parallel wire the outputs, depending on how the motors are laid out. Okay, if you have the motors basically in a quad configuration, and you have two motors spinning the same direction on one arm, whether they're like, they would have to be coaxial mounted, right? Or you could theoretically have an octo where there are two motors on one corner of the octo and they're both spinning the same direction. Or they're coaxial and they're both spinning the same direction. In that case, you could parallel wire the signal outputs, tell the flight controller that it's a quadcopter, and it would work because it's two motors getting the same output spinning the same direction. That would work. It's better to have a flight controller that has 8 motor outputs and it knows that it's an octo. That's how it's usually done. Thank you, Colt Singh, for 150 NT dollars. I don't know what an NT dollar is. Does a motor's electrical resistance matter? At around 1900 kV, bigger motors generally have lower resistance compared to normal size 2207 motors. No, the DC resistance doesn't really matter. I mean, I don't know. Maybe some engineer could tell me why it does. But the bottom line is that the motor is almost always, it has a PWM signal going through it, which is it's essentially an AC signal. It's 48, typically, between 16 and say 96 kilohertz. So it is a high frequency AC signal. So the DC resistance kind of doesn't matter because there's not DC voltage going through the motor, even at full throttle. It's more about impedance than resistance. The other thing is, like, if you need a motor of a certain kV and a certain size, you need a certain length of winding to go around the motor. At which point, like, the resistance just is going to be what it is. How are you going to change the resistance? Could you use fatter wire? Yes, you could. The resistance would go down. But you would also need a longer length of wire because you would have more wire in the core, right? So what would the net change in resistance be? The other thing is that when you have an AC signal, the signal is traveling. There's the thing called skin effect, where the signal is traveling mostly on the perimeter of the wire, not through the core. So the bottom line is that the DC resistance is a poor predictor of the motor's performance. That's the bottom line. Let's see here. We've got about 10 minutes left in the stream. We are caught up on Super Chats. This is the part of the video where I tell you that if you didn't get your question answered, that's always the case, that some people's question doesn't get answered because there's just a lot of questions. There's only so much time. If you didn't get your question answered, please email jb@joshuabardwell.com, and I will do my best to get them answered offline.
Can we discuss the drone committee thing?
Absolutely.
Okay.
What should I put on screen, Blunty? What are my keywords?
It really wants to talk about it.
What's my keyword
hold
search?
on. Well, I don't know about a good... I mean, there's a video, but I don't know if you want to show that on mute.
Is it... I think I know. You got a link?
I'll put it in the live stream chat.
The Forbes breaking news. Okay,
so I'm not sure, like, because it's a news video, but I think it's something like C-SPAN that everybody airs, so I don't know that you have to have rights to air it. I don't know.
Forbes, it's Forbes breaking news. Okay, well, I'm not going to... How about that? How about I don't show much of the video? We'll just, like, put a link to the video or put the video on screen. House Homeland Security Committee holds hearing on drone warfare. Oh, this has got to be good.
Basically, you know, we discussed after one of our last our last shows, and you discussed a little bit on the show about the spiderweb attack that happened. This is a committee response in like a House response.
Should we tell the people what the spiderweb attack is? It was the spiderweb attack is an attack that Ukraine performed on Russia, where they hid drones inside shipping containers that were disguised as like mobile offices, and then they used a trucking company to move the containers near Russian air bases, and then remote control. The drones came out and they started blowing up Russian bombers and air bases. And I posited to you, this was offline after the live stream, that this kind of thing, this also happened in Iran. Israel used the same method to soften up Iran before their attack. And I posited that this was a new way of using drones, a unique threat that might have effects on regulation. That's the short version. So that's what the spiderweb attack was. Go ahead.
Yeah, so this is basically a big meeting of like, hey, we're all slow to react, but now we know this can happen. We should do something about it. So if you have listened to this show in the news for the past while, you know, I've said this before, but I don't say this very often. As someone who works with the FAA and other groups, you should understand that regardless of any of these meetings or anything else, we have heard from the FAA and other sources that in the next 5 to 10 years, everything in the entire air will be tracked. People are upset about it, and people don't want it to happen, but I'm sorry, it's going to happen. All planes, all ultralight, everybody who's not even regulated right now will be tracked in the sky. This is a full across-the-board government action that's been happening for many years. We saw it with the original attempt to do remote ID, or it was originally network remote ID, where you need to be hooked to either Wi-Fi or a 4G or 5G signal. That's going to happen. It's just been delayed. We've said for years that's going to happen eventually. This is just another push towards that direction. So what you're seeing is a bunch of lawmakers get into tiffy about the situation, because now they're seeing like, hey, this could happen on our soil tomorrow. This could happen at any big event. We're not prepared for this, right? And there's a bunch of regulation in the way. That's all true, right? Like, there's nothing that's not true about all those cases. It's just we're very behind in understanding this as a nation. So we're seeing a bunch of reaction to that. But regardless of this happening, before any of these attacks happened, before even the Ukraine war, this was all on board to happen because people wanted air taxis in the air, AAM. And the air taxi companies are pushing for the skies to be clear from drones and ultralights and everybody. You know, if you can't track an ultralight pilot in the air, that's just as bad as not tracking a drone. It's just easier to see when they're coming at you, right? So, like, they want everything tracked. This has been on track forever, and this is just accelerating the track for that to happen. I'm very sorry this is the case, but it's the case. Drone Camps put out a video. I don't want to get into any background on that, but I'll just say Drone Camps put out a video about this, and it is a little reactionary, but
the general idea of it is correct. You will likely be paying a third-party provider that the FAA hires for different cities or locations. You will pay to take off and land through an app to legally do it. Again, you can do what you want, but this is the law will say. You legally have to pay to take off and land, and you'll be registered with a remote ID device that is always connected to the internet or a cell phone signal. That is what the law will say the next 5 to 10 years, unless something drastically changes. This is what we heard for many years over and over again, and I'm sorry for anyone who's never heard that. And I know it sucks for the hobby, but I feel like I have to say that clearly so that people understand what's happening.
Yeah. And like, this is a whole can of worms, honestly. I do think, I think a key point that you bring up, Blunty, is that this has been their goal from the beginning. And it bothers me when I see people say, if only it weren't for those, insert the name of someone you don't like here. If only it wasn't for Bachgrinder. I'll pick on him because I know he doesn't give a shit. And he knows I'm joking. If only Bachgrinder hadn't done that video where he pretended to fly a drone on Salvia, the FAA wouldn't have done this. If only Philly Mikey hadn't flown his drone over Philadelphia so many times, the FAA wouldn't have done this. And that's complete bullshit. It is complete bullshit. It is inherent to the nature of drones, small UASs, whatever you want to call them. It is inherent to the nature of them that they are effective at being a certain type of threat. And it is inherent. My point is that these regulations were always going to happen because, like, the first time somebody struck oil out on the West Coast, you know, everybody's going to be this oil rush, right? Gold rush. Like, and like the people who were there before the oil rush in the Midwest, or I don't know if there's oil on the West Coast, that was the gold rush. I'm getting a little confused. The people who are there are annoyed that suddenly the land that they enjoyed is now being taken over by all these interlopers, and it's wrong, and it's not their fault. But they didn't do anything wrong. RC pilots and FPV pilots didn't cause this regulation to come down on them. The essence of what it means to be an RC aircraft and what it means, like, that was always sort of going to happen, I think. And so I think it's really misguided for us to, like, point the blame at ourselves and say, if only so-and-so hadn't done such and such. Like, it's not like that helped. That's the excuse that they give, right? And then you have events like Operation Spiderweb, which cause a whole bunch of people who weren't paying attention to suddenly go, oh, fuck, and push. Absolutely. There are things that can sort of accelerate the momentum of what was coming, but it was coming. It was coming. And it's a question of, does it happen in 7 years? Does it happen in 10 years? Does it happen in 5 years? It was coming. And that's always been the case. And I sort of I've said that, and I will keep hitting that, because, like, as long as we're going to get crushed anyway, it sucks if we're all, like, pointing the finger at each other and going, it's your fault we're being crushed. No, it's your fault we're being crushed. And meanwhile, the thing that's crushing us is just still crushing us. It's the same thing as someone in the chat said, this is the price of our complacency. No, it's not. Absolutely not. Again, you're blaming yourself for something that was never in your power to stop. It was, like, you could delay it, but ultimately I think this was inevitable. I don't know, Blunty, do you have a different perspective than me sometimes on these things? Do you agree or disagree? Do you have anything to say?
I mean, here's the problem we've always talked about here, okay, is that there's no money behind recreational drones to push a lobby.
Bingo.
That's like the core, right? Okay, the core. If you don't know, I'm part of the FPV Freedom Coalition. I'm one of 6 core members who work every week. I mean, we meet bi-weekly, and then we have a second bi-weekly like live stream that we do, and we attempt to get together and meet about how to fix things. We talk this week. We just talked on Wednesday privately about, you know, different rules that have been coming out and the timelines for different projects and how we can handle like a comment period that just came up. There's a comment period about DJI that we're working on that. You know, unfortunately, the way this stuff works is, you know, we're a nonprofit. We don't get a lot of money. We're thankful for all the members we have, but, you know, we don't have lobbying money. We've been working on trying different ways to cozy up to different people who might get us lobbying time, right? Like, but it's just not, like nobody's going to put up the cash for it, right? It's not like Race Day Quads and Get FPV and Rotor Riot and everybody got in a big conglomerate and they're all putting money forth to lobby to the federal government as a big conglomerate, right? None of that has happened. And that's, to me, like one of the only ways that could happen is somebody has to get together. The people who are getting together are commercial entities, right? Those are the people who are getting together and making this stuff happen. And the real money the real things happen through money, paying a lobbyist who's working every day on the Hill to push your incentives in the bills, to get them written in the bills so they get voted on and they get passed, right? That's literally how it works. It's unfortunate, but that's how the system works. And until we have a big push for recreational drones, which doesn't seem to happen because, again, there's no money in it, right? There's the little money versus the big commercial money. We do the best we can. We sit in meetings all the time. We push as many things as we can. Hopefully, when the BVLS rules come out, we'll have some kind of recreational exception that we tried to push in there. Dave was at meetings every month for like 2.5 years for that, much less every other thing, But there's only so much that I see that we can do because of the entities that are pushing this on the other side. Right. I'm happy to hear anything. Also, I'll just say we're always happy to hear anything you guys have that's actually actionable and helpful. As the FPVFC, you can email us. It's blunty@fpvfc.org. Dave at fpvfc.org. You can always let us know if you have any way we can actually help out better. But we're doing the best we can without big lobbying money to try to change that. And I don't know that there is a way without that. We talk about this a lot too, right? This is part of our thing as FPVFC. How can we change things? And we do the best we can. But I would love a way for somebody to drop I've said this before, somebody really rich needs to get interested in FPV and really care about it as a hobby, and then drop a couple $1 million on lobbying.
Right.
And then suddenly
and then maybe there's a chance.
Right. That's how you start to get carve outs and people start to get real compromises and start to get like actual change happening. People can make deals between different rules and then make things change.
Right.
But until then, unfortunately, it doesn't happen.
There needs to be money behind it, and there isn't. And there's a lot of money on the other side. And that's how the world
I'm sorry. I'll also say I'm not happy to say any of the things I'm saying, but I hope that you understand that this is what I've seen and what I believe and what I personally know to be true. So. Yep.
And the truth is what matters most, right? Ciati's starting his stream. I'm going to keep going a little bit on this topic just because it's a fun one for me, and I think it's an important one to talk about. I got the link to Ciati's stream up on the screen. Brandon Bean says, why not track all road vehicles while we're at it? Hey, Brandon, no offense, dude. I respect you a lot, but you're incredibly naive if you think that all road vehicles are not tracked. And you say, what do you mean? I don't have a tracking device in my vehicle. Yes, you do. I have a buddy whose RV was stolen while he was on vacation. It was stolen from a storage lot, and he went to the sheriff, and they were able to pull up the records that they have on the interstate, the cameras that they have on the interstate that are doing image recognition on every license plate that they see. And they were able to see he got on the interstate. Your camper got on the interstate here. It drove down to here and it got off the interstate. Guess what? Oh, well, now he's off the interstate. They're not tracking him. Hey, guess what? Every vehicle made in the last, I don't know when, 2 decades, maybe 3 decades. I'm not sure. You know how it has like that OnStar service or whatever it is? It's got that cellular service built in where you can, my Ford Mustang, if I want to pay a fee, I can have it be a cellular hotspot. It can be a Wi-Fi hotspot. It's got a built-in cellular modem. It's got the OnStar where if you hit 911, it'll call 911. Guess what? Almost all cars sold today have that in them in one form or another. And even if you're not using it, that radio is still there. It's still active and it's still pinging the towers. And so if the government wanted to find out where your car went, they have ways of doing it. They have cameras all over the city. In rural environments, they can track it via the cell phone. And there's other shit that we don't even know about. So yes, every road vehicle on the road is being tracked in a very meaningful way. Not the same as remote ID and network remote ID. But the point is, they're doing it. It's not hypocritical, and I'm not saying that's right or wrong, but I am saying open your eyes about the level of surveillance that already exists when you think about how outrageous it is that they're trying to do this to us with our drones. Bicycles and skateboards, kites, and etc. Guess what? You're on a bicycle in a city, cameras are picking you up, and they're detecting your face, and somewhere there's a database that someone can pull up and show everywhere you went in that city because they were looking at your face. That's definitely true in Beijing. Is it true in New York City? Is it true in San Francisco? I don't know, but wake up, I would say. And then the other thing that I want to, and I just hate this stupid argument. I'm sorry, this is Why does it think I'm right-clicking? I'm not right-clicking. I can't click because it thinks I'm right-clicking. That's weird. Oh, I see. I'm on the wrong. Sorry. Hold on. The other argument... Shut the fuck up. Bad actors are always going to find a way. Laws, regulations don't work. That is absolutely... I understand the argument, like, that if a bad actor... If you're talking about a state-level actor, if you're talking about a Russia or a China, yes, U.S. regulations are not going to do anything. If you look at, like, do you think in Iran it was illegal to have a drone laden with explosives? Yes. And yet, when Israel started their attack, suddenly there were drones with explosives in Iran, and they softened up the air defenses before Israel went in. That's all public knowledge, right? So yes, on a certain level, the actor who is going against you can get the things that you don't want him to have and can use them against you. Absolutely. But to say that bad actors are always going to find a way and that regulations have no effect is just stupid and naive. And it doesn't matter if you're talking about guns or drugs or drones. It is a fact that prohibition works. Okay. Would it be easier or harder for you to get a brick of C4 tomorrow if it was legal to buy and you could go into your local farm supply and buy it, as opposed to if it was illegal? Oh, I guess regulations work, because I don't know where to get a brick of C4. You know, if I wanted a stick of dynamite, like, I know that's a thing that farmers can buy, and I could start figuring out how to get a stick of dynamite, but it would still be hard. But I wouldn't know where to get a brick of C4. If you want me to go buy a firearm, I know exactly how to get it, because there is a legal and public way of getting a firearm. If you ask me to go get an RPG, I wouldn't know where to begin. And the reason is that it's because they're illegal. Because I guarantee you, if RPGs were legal to have, one of my neighbors would be shooting one into the hillside on the weekend and hooting and hollering about how much fun it is. And I'd be right there with him. So yes, absolutely, prohibition works. Is it perfect? No. Does it stop all crime? No. But it does prevent people, including both law-abiding and non-law-abiding people, from getting their hands on the things that are prohibited. So put that frickin' argument to bed. I've been listening to that argument for 20 years. It started with gun control, and it was stupid then, and it's stupid now. Prohibition works. It works. It's not perfect, and it has knock-on effects, and I'm not saying it's the right solution, but stop making the bad argument that it doesn't work. It does work. Okay. I hate that. I hate a bad argument. If you're on my side, and I see you making a bad argument, I'm going to argue with you. I'm not going to let you get away with being, like, rhetorically sloppy. And that is a sloppy and flawed argument that people need to stop making. Okay. Whee. All right. Okay, I think we're done. Thank you guys for coming out. I'll see you tomorrow at 8 p.m. On the next live stream. And yeah, that's it. We're out. Have a great stream, Siati. Bye, everybody.